Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Sunday, October 6th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Oregon game is in 6 days. Been waiting a while to say that. The game against Michigan in 55 days. Before we get to the Oregon game, which I'm sure is all anyone really wants to think or talk about in Columbus this week, we do need to wrap things up with the Iowa Hawkeyes. Buckeyes wasn't beautiful. It wasn't thrilling necessarily. It was just the job is done. Punch the clock, pull the tail of the pelican or whatever, go get in your car and pedal your way home. The job is done. Ohio State has beaten Iowa 35-7. And Kevin, I feel like this was a game where it was very similar to what we were expecting. It was not going to be a game that everyone was going to watch and go, "Oh, this is what a thrill-a-minute thrill ride, incredible, tentpole movie kind of game." It was 7-0 at the half, but Ohio State kind of checked a lot of the boxes you were looking to have them check.
It was kind of a sleepy Saturday in a lot of ways, and I'm not going to mention a ton of games Alabama lost because we're recording this and there's still games going on, but Ohio State scores on the first drive. I believe I saw a stat saying it was the first time in 27 games that Iowa has given up a touchdown on the first drive of a game.
Wow.
So very impressive with that. Ohio State had a couple of turnovers that really kind of kept the first half in check, and they go to the locker room only up 7-0. And, I think there were some people that were very concerned on social media. Oh, Will Howard is having an off game. Oh, by the way, his numbers were actually really good. 21-25, 209, 4 touchdowns. Did throw a bad pick, in my opinion. When do you say, "Oh, that was a good pick"? That the guy
right? Yeah.
Threw? It's never. That's never really in the geometry there. But Ohio State, to its credit, kind of stuck to its guns and came out in the second half and puts up 21 points in the third quarter. And Ohio State's really becoming a third quarter team.
I watched this game sort of through the lens of Oregon because this is a good win for Ohio State. This is a borderline top 25 team. Iowa's going to win 9 games this year, maybe 10 games this year. And Ohio State really dispatched them pretty efficiently, 35-0 in the middle of the fourth quarter. But you're kind of watching this game through the lens of Oregon because the Ducks played on Friday night against Michigan State, and you watched Oregon kind of run through the Michigan State defense, and it was like, oh boy. Ohio State coaching staff talked about the importance of getting guys to the ground and not having a 3-yard gain turn into a 5-yard gain and a 5-yard gain turn into an 8-yard gain. The Buckeyes facing Caleb Johnson, very, very talented Iowa running back. He finished with 15 carries for 86 yards, but a lot of that came in kind of garbage time at the end. They really contained the Iowa run game. Looking ahead at the Oregon game, boy, that felt like that was one of the big questions that Ohio State maybe answered a little bit on Saturday.
Yeah, we had the chance to see Oregon play on Friday, and I think everybody's got their list of concerns. But for what you want to say about Iowa's offense, Caleb Johnson is Caleb Johnson, and he's very talented. The 86 yards, kind of backloaded with some garbage time. If we're really being honest, kind of cost me on one of my 3 shots. I thought I was going to land a big one on there with one of the Ohio State backs outpacing him, but that didn't happen. But everything is building. It's a crescendo for the Oregon game because honestly, as we look at the season and we look at everything, and they're going to be your matchups that are historical. And I kind of use air quotes for that with Penn State and then obviously against the team up north in Michigan. And you want to face some adversity. And Ohio State, I think, is going to face more adversity at Oregon. But having a couple of points of going on the road the first time to Michigan State and not everything going according to plan exactly, coming back home and having kind of that, as I said earlier in the show, that sleepy Saturday, that's something else that they can build on because it's not going to be sleepy at Autzen. It is going to be very loud, very hostile. I did kind of sit there and hear the end of Emeka Egbuka talking to the reporters here. He was asked about going to Oregon. He's like, "Oh, I hope it's chaotic." And and that's,
I have good news, friend.
Yes, it will be. It will be. But with him being from Washington State, I'm sure he knows plenty about Oregon.
Oh yeah. So the Buckeyes First quarter allowed Iowa 5 carries, 2.8 yards. Second quarter, 9 carries, 0.4 yards on the ground. That is, in the first half, check that box, move on with life. The other side of the ball, I wondered how well Ohio State was going to be able to run the ball against a good defensive front, because Oregon completely shut down Michigan State on Friday night. And I thought, oh boy, are the Buckeyes going to be able to do this against a good defense? And it's not exactly the same defense, but it's a good defense with the Iowa Hawkeyes. You don't typically run all over the Iowa Hawkeyes. Buckeyes, first quarter, 8 carries, 5.3 yards per carry. Second quarter, 7 carries, 9.7 yards per carry. So they were able to kind of establish the run, and there was not the one big run. There wasn't the 86-yarder that really skewed the numbers. Quinshon Judkins, 13 carries, 78 yards. Trevion Henderson, 11 carries, 61 yards. Will Howard, 10 carries, 28 yards. They averaged 5.1 yards per carry, and the long was 21. So it was just a lot of fours. 4 is great. 4 is great on the ground, because if you're picking up 4 yards on first down, it's 2nd and 6. You're still on schedule. You pick up 4 on second down, now it's 3rd and 2. You can do whatever you want. You got the whole playbook open to you. I felt like I saw. It was not thrilling. It was not incredible. It was not a game that's going to go down in Ohio State history. But it was a game where you watched and you thought, I think you're seeing a lot of the stuff that Ohio State needs to do next week in Eugene. You're seeing that they can do it against a good defense.
Right. There's going to be a lot of talk that we're going to have and hear everything about that Ohio State has only shown 25% of its playbook or whatever. But Ohio State was able to show that it was, in that first half, that was very sleepy. That was 1 touchdown. They were able to run. I really have questions about why on some of the stalled drives they didn't keep running. We're running at a good clip at 5.4 or whatever. Let's throw it 3 times. I don't know about that, but I'll say this, kind of looking, if we're playing the transitive property, who would you rather have, the Michigan State running backs or the Ohio State running backs?
I don't feel like this is the most challenging question I'm going to get all week.
No.
You mentioned Emeka Egbuka earlier there, and the running game was efficient. Emeka Egbuka had three receiving touchdowns. He had a huge game, 9 catches, 71 yards. Again, long of 15. This was not a huge explosive game. This was not a 300-yard receiving game like you saw from Jackson Smith and Jigba in the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago. 9 catches, 3 touchdowns, 9 catches on 10 targets. It was a game where they did not have Carnell Tate, and that sounds like that was purely a precautionary thing. And Jeremiah Smith, you could tell. Iowa knew where Jeremiah Smith was. Jeremiah Smith got a lot of attention. And even without Carnell Tate, Ohio State, they just had another guy who just stepped up and caught 3 touchdowns.
And we did not hear Jeremiah Smith's name called for a while in the game. And then when we finally did, he had a fumble. But, it would have been very easy for a freshman to fold at that point, to sit there and be like, it's been very easy for the coaching staff to say, all right, you're going to have a seat over there. Not Jeremiah Smith. He's just, he's a freak, and he had yet another one-handed touchdown grab and everything else. So, Ohio State has waves upon waves upon waves of weapons. I still hear from people, they don't have, what do they have a tight end? Who are you not going to throw to the tight ends? And I do understand that they hit Kasmerick once in there. But honestly, this offense, as long as they're all kind of on the same page, is pretty damn difficult to slow down.
Yeah, you do have to kind of pick your poison there. And if they can run the ball against Oregon, that will probably help them in terms of pass protection, keeping the Oregon defensive line, because they've got a couple real good defensive ends who made Michigan State's life deeply unpleasant on Friday night. But if Ohio State can run the ball, and it looks like they probably can, that is going to go a long way, I think, towards helping them potentially pull out a win in Eugene next Saturday. So, all right, we've talked enough about Iowa. No one wants to talk about it. This feels a little like the game before the Michigan game, where it's, we do the post-game show, and it's like, all right, we have to spend 17 minutes talking about the fact that they beat Maryland before we can get to the thing that everyone actually wants to talk about.
Do we?
Well, yeah. Historically, yes. It is finally time to turn the page to the Oregon game. This is going to be an enormous game. nationally. Top 5 probably matchup. I mean, we'll see how far Alabama drops in the polls, but it feels like this is going to be probably a top 5 matchup, one of the most anticipated games of the year, and a game in a spot where Ohio State hasn't played. Like, over the years, they've had a bunch of these non-conference games in Texas or Oklahoma. This is right up there.
Yeah. I mean, Autzen Stadium is known by many as the loudest stadium in the country. So, I mean, you're going to have your stuff right. I mean, helmet communications probably not going to be very helpful if the fans are all lathered up. You've got to hit them fast. You got to hit them hard. You got to try and take them out of the game. And Oregon still is a team that you could be up 3 scores and still have 17 minutes left on the clock and be in deep duck do because, I mean, they are an explosive offense. Dylan Gabriel, their quarterback, had a couple of bad interceptions in the game against Michigan State. They tried to slow it down a little bit. They ended up running the ball some to try and let him kind of reset. He was able to reset, but this is going to go down as one of the biggest games of the season. I mean, obviously we've had Alabama, Georgia. Now we can look back at that and be like, maybe, but there's still going to be some big games the weekend of the 12th, and there are going to be some big games the weekend of the 19th. So buckle up.
Yeah, we will definitely be buckling up. We will be buckling up because the stewardess on the plane will tell us we need to buckle up. We are headed out to Oregon on Thursday. We will be out there Thursday, sort of late afternoon Pacific time, early evening East Coast time. We have a ton of content planned for this week. I don't ever want to compare anything to Michigan week because that is always sort of its own thing, but we have extra shows coming for you this week at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We got lots of extra content coming for you. We'll probably have some extra chats at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We have a lot of stuff coming. We've got a lot of live shows we have planned for this week. We'll have our usual interviews and all that kind of stuff midweek. We have Tony and I will be dropping on Sunday, essentially an Oregon Sunday to go with the Michigan Monday show. Looking at the Oregon Ducks and their game against the Michigan State Spartans, what we learned from that. We'll have the usual Michigan Monday show, but we'll have all those interviews during the week, and then plenty of content out from the West Coast as well. So this would be a tremendous time for you to join BuckeyeHuddle.com. It's going to be more content than you can possibly know what to do with because, let's be honest, you're going to spend the whole week looking at your watch like Kevin just did and wondering, when is the game going to happen?
Mine was just down to 10%.
How soon is this game going to happen? Why isn't the game happening sooner? We will help fill that void in your life, in your work week, with plenty of content this week at BuckeyeHuddle.com and, of course, at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle as well. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.